to make a video for self-proclaimed gymnastics program that I'm writing throughout this quarantine situation, if you will. So we're going to talk about burpees, which is a movement that I love and everyone else loves to hate. So as part of our Saturday class tomorrow, we're going to do some burpee efficiency work because you guys got a break on your burpee capacity work since you'll be retesting it next week. So we're going to do just sets of 5 burpees, focusing on different things in each of the sets so that you can hopefully improve your efficiency or just kind of figure out what works for you. So the first variation we're going to do is 5 squat thrusts. A squat thrust looks like this. One without a jump, one with a jump, okay? So the squat thrust is obviously the no push-up burpee variation. So the first thing that you'll focus on is replacing your feet with your hands and then replacing your hands with your feet. So they don't have to be exactly replaced, but you just want to make sure when you come down, your hands are close to your feet, palms are flat, you pop them out. When you hop back in, you're getting those feet very close, almost touching your palms. The second thing you want to focus on is coming up to about a shoulder width stance. So when I come up, I want to make sure I'm not narrow like this. I'm coming out into about shoulder width stance. The third thing you want to focus on when you come in is getting into a flat foot stance because you want to be prepared to jump. Oftentimes you see people, they might have a mobility limitation, they come out, they come in, they're in this narrow stance, which also limits their mobility even more, maybe in the hammies, or maybe they have an ankle flexion issue, and they're right here, right? So that makes it a hard position to jump out of. It also is deep hip flexion down here, so now I have to do a lot of squatting to get out of that position, okay? So the next thing I have people focus on, one more thing to add is, right, of course, in squat thrust, hit a good plank position, pressing away from the floor, butt squeeze, make sure you're not hitting a globally extended position and losing tension in your midline. It's going to be less efficient, you're going to lose power because now your core is disengaged, and it's just going to take longer to do every rep and put some stress where you don't need to have stress, aka your back. So then, the next thing I have people focus on is moving a little bit faster and really focusing on hip flexion. So instead of just mindlessly coming back in to the burpee before you come up and jump, think about snapping your hips, hip flexion, and pulling your feet in actively, right? So I'm thinking, snap my hips, snap my hips, snap my hips. My feet actually come in even closer than they were before and faster. So now I'm just saving a little bit of time. I'm getting more hip and core engagement and just making my burpee more efficient. All right, so we practice those 3 things with the squat thrust. Then from there, we're going to do the same thing but with the push-up burpee. So regular push-up burpee looks like this. Okay, so things to consider, keeping everything that we just discussed in mind. Hands and feet replacement, using the hips to snap in. But now since we have the push-up, we want to make sure that we're doing the push-up piece efficiently. So what we don't want to see is an actual push-up. The burpee really isn't a push-up. So it shouldn't look like this, a really slow negative down to the push-up, and a slow push out of the bottom. So it works both ways. What we do want to see is control of the position, not like smacking into the floor and losing all tension, but a quick and controlled descent and a quick and controlled ascent. So just, okay, old habits die hard, still hit my chest pretty hard. All right, so those are things that we don't and do want to see with that. Another thing that we can have athletes focus on, okay, is keeping the butt squeezed a little bit in the bottom, right? So just getting a little more global tension. The quads are going to be touching the floor. The chest is going to be touching the floor. I can give my butt a little bit of squeeze in the bottom then, in hip extension, and then explode into hip flexion, let go of that butt squeeze so my hips can flex, not flex. All right, so a lot of the same concepts apply, just looking at that, the difference by not going super slow into the push-up position. Body in the bottom, still coming up, largely neutral position here. I'm not doing a ton of worming just yet. We'll save that for something else that's coming up, believe it or not. All right, so just to recap there, not making it an actual push-up, use some of that speed as long as it's controlled, and some of that stretch reflex in the bottom when the chest hits the floor to pop out. Cool? Snap that body in half by pulling in with your hips. Replace your hands with your feet, flat foot, shoulder stance with the feet. The same rules apply as before. Excuse me. So then I also teach some athletic variations, and as my coach I think calls these Catherine David's daughter burpees because of the way she does burpees. I don't know if she does burpees like this all the time, but definitely I've seen her do them in competition. So in the normal burpee push-up, burpee, you're still looking at that normal push-up situation, right? The bottom of your push-up, you should have your wrists and your elbows back, your elbows off your body about 30 to 45 degrees. You should have some tension squeezing those shoulders down and back. Okay, you shouldn't be able to pull up and down to the bottom with no tension. That way you're actively ready to push up from the floor, okay? When it comes to athletes saving time in metcons and working out for time, sometimes I don't always teach these standard points of performance for the burpee. So let's say, for example, I have a metcon where I have lots of shoulder overhead, I have lots of pulling, maybe it's burpees combined with push press, or handstand walk, or thrusters, or something, again, where I'm using a lot of shoulder and triceps. So how I might do my burpees is kind of ignoring some of the stuff that I just said, right? So when I come down, what I'll do is keep my elbows tucked in by my side, okay? Kind of just squished in, actually touching my side, and that is how we would not teach a push-up, right? In the push-up, when people are trying to cheat or accidentally cheat, not necessarily purposely, right? It's easier for the body to have the elbows on the sides and touch it because it takes off some of that body weight, right? It looks like this. Okay, I'm actually resting my body on my arms, so I now have less load to push up in my push-up. So if I'm doing a burpee and I want to reduce the loading on my triceps and shoulders, I might actually come down and utilize that concept. Okay, it's a lot less demanding. I can feel it already. Just be careful you're not putting your shoulder in a compromised position, right? From there, when I'm in metcons with a lot of shoulders, I will also try to deload or unload my body weight by doing a slight worm variation, right? So instead of doing this, okay, mostly my body is coming down and up at the same time, I'll do this. Okay, so if you can see, hopefully, my upper body is actually peeling off the ground before my lower body, hopefully very noticeably. So what's that doing, right? Instead of being like this, regular push-up, pushing my whole body weight up, now I'm just pushing up my upper body, which is not quite as heavy, and then snapping my hips in to finish the movement. All right, so those are some tips that I would consider in speaking to my athletes who want to be more competitive in CrossFit and have mastered the prerequisites. Like they have good push-up position, they can do the standard burpee, if you want to call it that, for lots of repetitions over and over again. So now we might start playing with some variations that can hopefully save them if there's a very shoulder and tricep heavy dominant metcon coming in. All right, so those are just some of the tips that I like to use for burpees. If you guys have any tips, anything that you guys find useful, please let me know. I'd love to hear them.